It's 6 o'clock. I think it's time to start. Councillor Hewson will no doubt come along in a moment once we sort the technology problems out. Right, welcome everybody to our remote planning meeting. First of all, a little bit of general housekeeping. I'm Councillor Margaret Glancy, Chair of Planning, and prior to this evening's meeting, we have been testing the technology, and I can confirm that the speakers are in attendance and can be heard. I can also confirm that I can see and/or hear my fellow participating members here this evening. Those members are Councillors Findlos, Brown, Chandler, Faulkner, myself, Councillor Glancy. Councillor Hewson is due to join the meeting, but he's not here yet. Councillor Higgins, Councillor Holmes, Councillor Posnett, Councillor Steadman and Councillor Wood. We have a team of officers here present this evening. Solicitor to the Council, Bob Power, Assistant Director for Strategic Planning and Regulatory Services, Jim Worley. We haven't got the Development Manager, we've got Andrew Cunningham, who is a Planning Officer. And we've got members of our Democratic Services team, Natasha Taylor and Sarah Evans. And I think that's everybody. When members are speaking, please use the raise hand facility on your screen. And a member of Democratic Services, probably Natasha, will make a note and inform me accordingly. Members voting. Please note a remote member participating in a vote will cast his or her vote as if participating in a recorded vote. I will ask members alphabetically for their vote, for, against or abstain. All microphones will be unmuted whilst the vote is being recorded. Following the vote, all microphones will be returned to mute. Should we have any disruption to remote conferencing, I will refer you to the remote meeting procedure rules. In the event of a link failure for all attendees, I will call a short adjournment of up to 5 minutes. If the link cannot be re-established, the meeting shall be adjourned to a later date. In the event of a link failure to individual members, the remote members will be deemed to have left the meeting at the point of failure of the equipment. And if the link cannot be re-established before the end of the meeting, then the presumption will be that the meeting should continue to deal with items on the agenda, providing the meeting remains quorate. If there is disruption with a member's connectivity, Solicitor to the Council will determine whether a member has heard enough of the debate to be able to lawfully vote, depending on the particular circumstances and how much the member has missed. Members, please be reminded this meeting is being recorded. And remember, it is being live streamed. Please put your phone onto silence, and I'll do exactly that myself now. Thank you. Apologies for absence, item 1 on the agenda. Well, I have no apologies, but I still can't see Councillor Hewson.
Councillor Glancy.
Hello.
I've just been informed by Sarah that he is just logging on now, so he should be joining us shortly. I noticed that Councillor Holmes has her hand raised as well.
Okay. Councillor Holmes.
It's only because I thought that he probably had the problem like I had the problem. Because I had a password and everything from Thursday, and then apparently it was different. So probably it'd be a good idea if we're all, singing off the same hymn sheet, wouldn't it? And I'm sure that that's probably the problem with Councillor Hewson.
I must admit, though, when I join, I just when it says join here, I just press that button and I go straight through. I don't bother putting passwords in. So I find that the easier way than rather than try to put a password and number in. So
right.
I'm not sure if everybody has that same facility, but I find it works easier anyway, Councillor Holmes.
Before you move on, Councillor Glancy, through you, could I just ask Councillor Chandler to reposition her screen?
Oh, right, yes, because we've got a bit of a blur. Councillor Chandler, could you reposition your screen, please, so we can see you? Got a nice view of the carpet. No.
I think she probably needs to reverse the camera.
I think so, yes. Councillor Chandler, you might have to, I don't know where the button is on the iPad, but you've got the camera facing the other way rather than having it facing towards you. That's better.
Yeah.
Fine. Thank you. I see we've got Councillor Hewson's just arrived.
That's right. Yes, he has. He's just
Welcome,
logged in.
Councillor Hewson. Welcome to planning. Right, where was I? Right, apologies. We have no apologies for absence. To confirm the minutes of the 25th of June, the 2nd of July. Do we have any adjustments to the minutes that anybody would wish to make? No. Could I have a proposer or seconder for the minutes, please? Councillor Brown?
Yeah, happy to propose them, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Posnett?
Yes, happy to second.
Okay, that's brilliant. I'll now go through the list of councillors for you to agree the minutes for, against or abstain. Once I've made the note. Right. First one is Councillor Bindloss.
Yeah, 4, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
4, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Chandler. Councillor Chandler.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Faulkner.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Glancy, yes, I'm for. Councillor Hewson, you were not present at these meetings, so you're going to abstain.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Higgins.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Holmes.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Posnett.
4.
Councillor Steadman.
4, Chair.
And Councillor Wood.
4.
Thank you very much, everybody. The next item on the agenda is item 3, which is declarations of interest. Please note the content of the advice on members' interests, and if you think you have a personal, either non-pecuniary or pecuniary or bias, please state that now.
We have Councillor Posnett, Steadman
Posnett.
and Brown.
Okie dokie. Councillor Posnett, I presume it's Leicestershire County Council.
Yeah, I've got a personal interest as a councillor, as a county councillor.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Brown?
Yeah, it's in relation to item 4.1. I think it's personal interest, non-pecuniary. It's in relation to one of the objectors, Mr. David Mell, works at the same organisation I do, but on Adele's advice, she asked me to declare that, but we don't have any real relationship.
Okay.
And Councillor Steadman as well.
Right, I'm just making a note of that one. And Councillor Steadman?
Yes, planning appeal 19007441 full topic. I will be speaking on behalf of the village on that one.
Okay. And will you be joining the, well, sort of joining the public, in so to speak, on that one? You'll be not taking part in the debate?
No, I won't be taking part in the debate.
That's fine. Thank you very much. Right, item 3 done.
Councillor Glancy, before you move on to the next item, is it okay if I move Councillor Steadman through to the attendees?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, Councillor Steadman. Speak to you later. Thank you. Right. Excellent. Well, thank you for that. Item 4, we have 2 applications on the agenda this evening. The first one is 4.1, 19/00741/4, field OS 4011, Tofts Hill, Statham. Officers to address the committee, and I believe it's Mr. Worley.
It is. Thank you, Chair.
Thank
And
you.
I have the questionable honour of trying to run the technology tonight, so bear with me, it could go wrong.
Well, we're all patient. So.
Great. You should be seeing our standard presentation format now.
Yes, I confirm that.
Oh, well, that's a big relief. And can you still hear me and I presume see me in that corner?
Yes, I can still hear you and see you down the corner.
Okay, that's so far so good. I'll present in the normal way. As you've already outlined, this is an application. Well, it's actually an appeal position now for a development of proposed up to 9 dwellings at Tofts Hill in Statham. It was before you in February, but at the very last moment we received additional representation raising some quite important and detailed matters about drainage and geology and stability, and we felt it necessary to withdraw that application from that agenda whilst we investigated those concerns. But whilst we were in the process, the appeal was lodged, and which took the matter out of our hands, basically. So the purpose of tonight has moved on from the normal of making a determination, approve or refuse. We need to establish, we need to take your instruction as to what position we should adopt at appeal. You'll remember also that this application was ready to do that on the 25th of June, but we again deferred because there was further information with the applicant, ironically enough, the kind of information we were seeking back at the end of February, and we needed to deal with that. We've now done that, and that forms the basis of the covering report tonight. You'll see that we have that expertly reviewed by an independent consultant to investigate, to advise us what it says and whether it should allay our concerns. And whilst it takes us forward, they identify that there are still some concerns. It doesn't answer all of the questions that we have. It doesn't give assurance on all of the issues that were concerning us. So the net result of that insight is that we consider we should adopt the position of opposing the appeal because of these doubts. But the appeal will consider all of the issues, not just those that I've just been talking about and that form our covering report tonight. And we as an organisation are free to express an opinion on any or all, indeed all of the other issues that this application's given rise to, and it's a healthy list. So therefore we'll encourage the committee to debate all of the issues, and for that purpose we've appended the February report, which reports the comments that have been made on them and gives us our view on them. In other words, really proceeding just as we normally would if it was a planning application still in our hands. You'll find that that report at Appendix A. It is literally a duplication of the one that was removed at the last moment back in February. And just finish with a cautionary note, just to advise that just because this is a decision no longer in our hands, we're not in the position of approving or refusing, we're developing our position at appeal. It doesn't mean the stakes, so to speak, are reduced for us. So whatever our reasons, whether it's one, several or many, they will all be examined in immense detail by the inspector, and therefore the disciplines of decision making remain just as they would as if it was our decision. In other words, we still need to base any reasons we forward on planning grounds. They still need to be substantiated and they still need to be evidenced. And as we put in the covering report, the costs regime is applicable through the appeal process, obviously, because it's an ever-present feature. And the essential purpose of costs is to retain that discipline. So this is not a free go, I'm afraid. This is not an open goal. The usual rules of engagement apply, and I just thought it was worth highlighting in case anyone thought that we were in a it's kind of a lesser position or a pretended position. So if I can just very quickly, I hope, refresh your memories about what this application is about. We've had the site visit. I think we probably had 3 opportunities at the site visit now, so members will be aware of this site on the edge of Statham, containing a couple of buildings and just north west of a very substantial barn, and has this Toffs Hill frontage on its southwest boundary. That's where the access would be. This is the proposed layout. Access for kind of 2/3 of the site from that Toffs Hill access, and for another 4 dwellings off of the green, which is the top edge of the application site. I think I can move past the topography. Provided the sections here in the report, this is the lower section of the site showing the bungalows. And probably of greater importance, given the focus of the report, there's a section looking eastwards, as if you're viewing from Toffs Hill, basically. And you can see here the slope of the land, but you can also see with the stepped features where the retaining walls that are spoken about are referred to. I'm afraid I can't point them out, but at the extreme right of this section, you'll see how retaining walls would be formed in a stepped arrangement there to go down approximately 2 meters. There's another one after the first plot 8, to step down another meter, roughly speaking, and then a more graduated approach down to the lower parts of the site. Another cross section, C. This is south to north across the site, so a different perspective. But again, you can see a similar perspective from right to left, if that's a logical direction, showing that big step down at the beginning, then another one, and then a flatter part of the site. And finally, stepping further back into the site, yeah, that's correct, showing it in reverse. So this is looking at Toffs Hill, but again showing the same steps down, but of course the big one is now on the left of the screen. But you can again see the extent of the steps down that are being proposed, 2 meters, another 2 meters, and then a more gentle slope. So as I said, just in summary, our recommendation is to oppose the appeal on the grounds of the questions we still have about stability, drainage, and engineering design, but you're not limited to that that recommendation. If you're persuaded that there are other reasons, it's quite legitimate to send us off and argue those as well.
Thank you for that. Do we have any questions for clarification of Mr. Worley, members? I can't see anybody now on the right-hand side because of the plan in front of us.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to take this presentation down now. So
okay. Thank you.
We can always get it back.
Yes, thank you very much. Right, I can.
So
okay, we have. I can see them now. We've got
Councillor Wood. Yes.
Councillor Higgins.
Yeah, I was just busily writing down what Mr. Worley was saying. So the reasons you're recommending, you're saying drainage, engineering, design, just so I've got those. I think there was a third one.
Did you want to respond to Mr. Worley?
Well, I should do it in precise terms. So if we can take you to page 18 of the agenda in the recommendation box. They're the exact proposing, capturing the land stability and hydrology issues in slightly different terminology.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Councillor Higgins?
It does. I can write it from there. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I know at one of the briefings we had a few weeks ago, we'd talked about it would be useful to actually have a cross section, not just of the site, but actually the whole slope up to the crest of the hill above, so that we could actually get a better understanding of the topography above the site, which seemed to be a great deal of concern in terms of historical land slipping and issues around drainage actually above the site rather than just the site itself. I was just wondering if we had any availability to get that kind of information.
I'm sorry, that message hasn't reached me. I don't have that at my fingertips just now, and even if I did, I don't think there'd be a way of presenting it to you.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
you. Right, well, Councillor Wood, you want to, thank you. Right, you put your hand down. Right, well, on this agenda item tonight, we have 4 speakers. The first one is Councillor Bray from the Parish Council, which is Statham Parish Council. We'd like to call Councillor Bray forward, please, Natasha.
Okay, Councillor Bray's
Good
joining us
evening
now.
again. Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi. You have 3 minutes, Councillor Bray, once you start.
Okay, thank you. Right, reasons to oppose the appeal. Very simply, this scheme would do significant harm to the landscape, built form and character of Statham. This field is a window onto the Vale of Belvoir to the north and the wooded escarpment above. It's a steep slope with a rise of 5 metres across the field. To terrace this historic slope would be an act of vandalism and would be damaging and risky in landscape, visual, historic and environmental terms. It would harm the setting of the conservation area and the village, described in the Leicestershire Landscape Assessment within the Strategic Growth Plan as highly sensitive to development, and would scar the hillside with terracing, retaining walls and rows of red brick. An adjacent site was rejected under NPPF on appeal because the benefits would be significantly outweighed by the environmental harm. The Melton Plan clearly encourages development, but at the same time it aims to protect and enhance the characteristics of individual areas. This scheme fails the tests of our local plan, which taken as a whole does not support it. The original officer's report was less than rigorous in applying these tests. Safeguarding valued heritage and local landscapes is a strategic issue. Objectives include conserve the historic environment and heritage assets and protect the rural character of the borough. In the service centre assessment of Statham in Appendix 1, it says that the settlement spreads up the lower slopes and it would be inappropriate in landscape and development terms to continue this pattern of development. This scheme fails on EN1, which has 4 tests referring to the need not to harm important landscape features. This fails all 4. EN2, which requires respect and sensitivity for landscape features and seeks to protect and enhance them, which it doesn't. EN6, which says that development should not harm open areas which contribute to the setting and character of the settlement. EN11 on minimising flood risk and reducing the risk to others, important. EN12 on sustainable drainage systems. EN13 asks for positive approach to heritage assets. Toss Hill is a heritage asset, and this scheme affects the conservation area and unknown potential archaeology. It also destroys ancient hedgerows. So does it represent sustainable development under SS1 and SS2? Obviously not, if you listen to me. SS1 itself says that development should improve the economic, social and environmental conditions in the area. This scheme does none of those things. Quite the reverse, it's damaging to all 3. SS2, the spatial policy, posits proportion.
30 seconds, Chairman.
Yeah. Breaking up. Sorry, did you want to continue?
Yeah.
Sorry,
SS2.
I'll allow you a few minutes.
SS2, the spatial policy, posits proportionate contributions from service centres, recognising that they're each different and individual. The original report ignored the large 74 dwelling allocated site which is currently being planned when calculating Statham's contribution. SS2 allows windfall sites to make up the numbers, but it doesn't suggest that any windfall site in a service centre is automatically sustainable, as some people believe. We believe that this proposal does not constitute sustainable development under policies SS1 and SS2, nor satisfy the policies listed above in relation to its site-specific issues. Taking the Melton local plan as a whole, this proposal should be opposed as being inconsistent with it.
Thank you very much. Sorry for that. I don't know what happened then with interrupting you. I do apologise. Right, do we have any questions of Councillor Bray, just for clarification only, relating to his address to the committee this evening? Yes, Councillor Brown.
Yes, hello, Councillor Bray. Thanks for that presentation. Just one question for me is you mentioned earlier on in your presentation that around the local plan. Do you actually have a neighbourhood plan that exists in?
We're in the process of developing our neighbourhood plan.
So you don't have one. Okay, that's okay.
It's not gone through out yet.
Okay, it's all right.
But this sensitivity predates neighbourhood plan by a long way. It's in the 1976 conservation area proposal and everything.
Okay. Thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor Brown?
Perfect.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Holmes, I believe you have your hand raised. And you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm not now. You mentioned slippage. Have you seen evidence of slippage when it's sort of wet times, please?
Yes. In the report that's gone to the inspectorate, there are photographs of landslips in the along Toffs Hill.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Well, thank you very much, Councillor Bray. Thank you. Our second speaker this evening is David Mell, who's an objector. If you could call David Mell forward, Natasha.
Okay, Mr. Mell.
Good evening again. Good evening again, Mr. Mell.
Good evening.
Right, you have 3 minutes from when you start.
Madam Chair and councillors, 87 objections have been lodged to this application and not a single voice in support. We ask you to oppose the appeal on policy grounds as well as drainage issues. The paper before you specifically invites you to consider doing this. This is a windfall site. Policy SS3 states that such developments must provide housing which means a proven local need as identified by substantive evidence provided by the applicant. There is no such evidence provided, nor does it exist. Our housing needs survey shows a need for 12 affordable and 6 open market dwellings. The applicant has deliberately and openly revised the number and footprint of dwellings in order to avoid affordable housing obligations. The only match with open market properties are the 3 2-bedroom bungalows. The applicants are way too big and expensive for the stated requirement to downsize. The needs will, however, be met by allocated site Stat 1 with 70 or so mixed dwellings. Policy SS1 says that the applications that accord with the policies in this local plan will be approved. Since the application does not accord with SS3 and many other policies, it will fail SS1. Policy SS2 says that windfall sites must meet SS1 or SS3. This meets neither. The particular site on Toffs Hill also fails the plan's environmental and infrastructure tests. At point 4.2.20, policy SS2 recognises that service centres have various constraints at the settlement or individual site level. It states, these are set out in Appendix 1, which should be read in conjunction with policy C1. For Stathern, Appendix 1 states that further development up the escarpment would be inappropriate. It does not qualify this. We must assume it means exactly what it says. I would like to pick out point 5 of policy EN1. Developments must not have an unacceptable adverse effect upon an area's sense of place and local distinctiveness. That is our point. Toffs Hill is not a street or a road as others in the village. It is a treasured community asset used by families with young children, runners, horse riders, and many walkers, the enjoyment of the landscape, acknowledged magnificent views and tranquility. All characteristics protected by policies EN1 and EN6. Just like our play park or 13th century church, it is what goes to make Stathern, Stathern. If you agree with any of the breaches that Ken and I have raised, then you should add this to the reasons to oppose. The cumulative effect of our many examples is surely overwhelming.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mell. Do we have any questions for clarification only? No, it looks like we don't. Thank you very much, Mr. Mel. Nice speaking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The third speaker this evening on this item is Helen Broadhurst, who's the agent.
Helen Broadhurst will be just joining us now.
Hi again. I think you're on mute at the moment, right?
Hello.
We're allowed in. Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. As you'll be aware, this application seeks consent for the demolition of 2 existing dwellings and a barn and their replacement with 9 new dwellings, with 4 dwellings to be accessed from the green and the remaining 5 dwellings to be accessed from Tofts Hill. The site comprises 0.83 hectares of land located on the eastern side of Stathern. The proposed development delivers a density of 11 dwellings per hectare and provides a mix of 7 bungalows and 2 family homes. This is a low density development for several reasons. Firstly, we wish to deliver a high number of bungalows, which we believe meets local housing needs. It reflects the character and appearance of the location, and the low heights of the buildings will preserve views of the village from the Tofts Hill ridgeline. The site adjoins the service centre of Stathern and as such is subject to policies SS1 and SS2 of the adopted Melton Local Plan. Policy SS2 supports sustainable development at the service centres and states that housing needs will partially be met by encouraging small-scale residential schemes where they would represent sustainable development under policy SS1, or would enhance the sustainability of the community in accordance with policy SS3. The local plan also states that for windfall sites such as this, schemes of up to about 10 dwellings are appropriate within or on the edge of service centres, which this proposal accords with. The site has been assessed in respect of landscape and visual impact. This part of Stathern is identified as being the least sensitive within the areas of separation, settlement fringe sensitivity, and local green space study, which forms part of the Melton Local Plan evidence base. And the development will be entirely contained on the flat land at the bottom of Tofts Hill and will not extend up the escarpment. The concerns raised in respect of ground conditions have now been fully addressed through a ground report completed by GA Site Investigations dated 15th of June 2020. This report concludes that this development can be safely delivered and makes recommendations in respect of retaining wall and foundation designs which will be adhered to and which can be secured through suitably worded planning conditions. Overall, we would stress that this scheme has been carefully developed and has given detailed consideration to ecology and landscape value, local housing needs, drainage and ground conditions, access, and the historic environment and character of Stathern. There have been no objections to this proposal from any statutory consultee, with the exception of the Parish Council, and we would stress that the concerns raised by the parish and the local community have been fully addressed through revisions made to this proposal. Given the compliance of this proposal with the development plan, we hope that you will support this proposal. Many thanks.
Thank you for that. Do we have any questions for clarification? No, I have one question. I note you said the development is on flat land. If that is the case, then can I ask why we need to have the terracing effect where you're building retaining walls if it's on the flat land?
Yeah, I mean, essentially the policy or the concern raised by the Parish Council in respect of the site extending up the escarpment, essentially what I'm saying is it doesn't do that. The site does rise, it has a fall from top to bottom, if you like, of approximately 5 metres, but it doesn't progress development further beyond existing development approved on the opposite side of Tofts Hill. So it doesn't extend built form further up the escarpment than is already there.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Higgins, do you have a question?
Yes, so the recommendations presented to us and from officers, admittedly, planning members are also lay people, but we do have professionals, and from what's been presented, it's come in front of the recommendation in regards to land stability, hydrology and drainage. Your 3 minutes only very lightly touched on that part. So is that contained in this report on the 15th of June you spoke about? And in terms of that, how, bearing in mind that's probably the largest thrust that professionally we've been given, that your 3 minutes was just ever so slightly on that. So how can I make that decision from what's been presented from yourselves? And you are the advocate for this application.
Yes, I'm very aware. I mean, 3 minutes isn't long enough, essentially, to address with what is a very technical matter. And I am relying, therefore, on the report that's been submitted, which fully addresses those technical issues. I can't begin to go into the detail needed in 3 minutes. As Mr. Worley expressed to you at the beginning of the meeting, you are, as committee members, you are obviously able to consider all issues, and therefore I wanted my presentation to consider the policy issues and to consider all matters pertinent to your decision. And as I say, I'm struggling to provide you with the detail that you need in the 3 minute window that I have. So yes, I'm very much reliant upon the report that's been submitted to you dated 15th of June, which, as I say, in essence concludes that there is a safe and deliverable strategy that can deal with the concerns that have been raised. It fully addresses the geology and hydrology of the site, and it sets out how a solution can be delivered, albeit, and the reason that there still remain concerns, I think, from the counter report commissioned by the council, produced by MEC Consulting, is currently we haven't got a full design for the foundations and for the retaining wall structures. However, we've got all the information that we need, and we have a letter from the structural engineers which essentially says that solution is there. It's just not been designed yet. And I think the only reason it's not been designed yet is because we haven't yet had the time to do it. But as I say, essentially that technical report sets out how that solution can be delivered in a safe way, which doesn't pose any risk in terms of slippage or drainage issues.
Thank you. Councillor Wood, do you have a question?
Yes, just thinking about the ground report, I think I'm right in saying, I've read it a couple of times, that all of the sample areas were within the site itself, which means that, that no sampling has actually occurred on the slope above the site.
Yes, and it's very difficult. Obviously, we don't have consent from other landowners to access their land to take samples. But so clearly the samples that have been taken give a good representation of the land and the ground strata. There's going to be no, and again, talking to the consultants, which clearly you've I accept you haven't had the benefit of doing that, but they express their clear view that that ground strata is the same from here all the way to Stamford. So that's not going to suddenly change in terms of the ground conditions and how the ground is made up between the site above and the site that we're considering here.
But presumably the groundwater hydrology and hydrodynamics might be different on the slope, and actually slope instability might be greater if the slope gradient itself is higher. And they won't necessarily know the details of that if they haven't sampled, surely.
Again, though, if you look at any site and any report of this nature, that there can't be a requirement to access adjoining land, because we just don't have the ability to access land that we don't own.
I accept that. I'm just trying to ascertain what level of information there is in relation to
I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Geological risk.
Yeah, I mean, yes, as you say, the boreholes, that the information gathered relates to our site alone. However, clearly the expertise of the consultants is to model that and use that information to say, well, what is the wider impact and how can that be mitigated?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. We have, I thought I saw Councillor Holmes's hand was raised. No. Councillor Holmes.
You did, but I was going to ask the same thing as
Okay.
Councillor Wood, so it wasn't necessary.
That's fine, just double checking. Councillor Brown.
Thank you. Okay. Helen, thanks for that. Just to clarify for me, so just I'm absolutely clear. I may have misheard this, so that's why I want to clarify. You do state that you haven't been able to get all of the technical details and drawings submitted to compare against the mitigations of the drainage and water issues. If that is correct, is there a reason why it's taken so long to do that? And is there a reason why that hasn't been able to be submitted to us so that we could peruse that to make a more robust decision?
Yes, I mean, it's just timing with so our report, as Mr. Worley outlined again at the beginning, this issue was raised very last minute, just before the committee meeting back in February. Once we were aware of that, we went out to consultants to ask them to address this issue. So that report was commissioned just before we went into sort of full lockdown. Staff were then furloughed, and we weren't able to get that report completed before the lockdown process started. So as soon as those staff were available to complete the report, it has been completed, hence it only being available in June.
Okay, thank you for that. Does that answer your question, Councillor Brown?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Oh, Councillor Holmes, you've got your hand up now.
I'm just a bit worried about this. You say about, and this is for clarification. So it has actually, you said that because of lockdown, you were not able to get everything dealt with, but now everything, you've had an in-depth survey, have you? A totally in-depth survey, because of course there's we've had a very dry time. Now we had a bit of a wet time, but we had an extremely wet time before. Funnily enough, we're sort of in a line for this escarpment. That's where I live, and so we do know a bit about slippage. So I can be assured that everything now is absolutely tip-top, and you have got all the information you need. It is going to be totally safe.
That's what our report shows, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have Councillor Bindloss.
Thank you. Yeah, it kind of goes along the same line as Councillor Woods, really. As far as the development of the site is concerned, once that site is developed, that natural baffling that the land provides at the moment for the water runoff will no longer be there. And it's a lot about the water coming from above and beyond that, really. There's going to be an awful lot of water that's going to be coming down. It's going to be magnified, and it was going to consolidate at some point. Have you considered the drainage that you're going to need for that? And more than just that, also, as was just alluded to, you know, we're going through periods of time where we get some very, very weird, heavy weather. I think that tests need to be done, you know, at other times when there's been heavy rain, as well as potentially now, where it's relatively dry. But I think the overriding point is that if all that baffling is taken away, that water, however many walls we put in there, is going to actually find its way through down to the bottom, and there's going to be a real issue with drainage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Am I able to just respond to that briefly?
Just quickly, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, all I'd say is the report that's been undertaken takes into account, you know, varying levels of water and rainfall. So it's not just an assessment on a standalone day. It takes into account different levels of rainfall, different amounts of water running through the site. The retaining walls and the drainage of the ground, and specifically behind the retaining walls, will be carefully designed. It's not a free draining, it won't be as a free draining solution. It needs to be managed. So the solution for the drainage is carefully designed such that groundwater movement through the site and down the slope and through those retaining walls is managed. So as I say, that water doesn't just free flow and become a flood at the bottom of the site, if you like. That's all controlled. And that, as I say, is detailed in the report and in the surface water drainage report that was submitted with the original application, which has obviously gone to Severn Trent and has gone to the Environment Agency, who are happy with that solution.
Okay, thank you. We have another question for you from Councillor Peter Faulkner.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm just trying to get my head around a bit of the timeline here. The report came to us originally in February, and we asked for further information, and you said that it wasn't possible to get that information until June because of the shutdown. So I'm wondering why it was deemed appropriate at that time to go for non-determination when you couldn't get us the information we requested. Instead of waiting to have this listened to properly, you went for non-determination. It seems to be a strange way to doing it. Thank you.
Am I okay to respond to that? Sorry, Chair.
Yes, you can respond. It was a question to yourself.
Okay.
Question I was going to ask as well, but yes, it's been asked.
Okay. I mean, essentially, I think we were very concerned that the objection raised by Dr. Cooper was submitted to the authority on the day of the committee meeting. And it felt very much, unfortunately, that was poor timing perhaps, and didn't give us any opportunity to respond or address that concern. We couldn't understand, either the applicant or myself, why that response hadn't been submitted to the authority much sooner in this process in order to give us an opportunity to respond fully to that concern in advance of the committee meeting. And we felt that the submission of that objection, I can't remember now whether it was on the day of the committee or the day before, essentially, as I say, sought to put a spanner in the works, if you like, in terms of the proper consideration of the application. And on that basis, we felt that an appeal against non-determination was an option available, and the applicant wished to go down that route.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Chandler, I think this will be the final one. We need to move on.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I endorse everything Councillor Bindloss has said. I was going to make similar comments myself, but I think it's also worth mentioning that Mill Hill, which is runs adjacent to Toffs Hill, there's always debris coming across the road from the fields when it rains. It doesn't have to be that heavy, but there's always debris coming across the road. And as far as I can see, there's nothing in the report that's going to contain slippage. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Did you want to respond to that at all, Helen?
Yes, I'd simply say that when you've got a greenfield site and water runs off that site, it's free flowing, it's not managed, so surface water runoff can then just go where it wants to go. So if it travels across the road and brings with it debris from the field, then that's what that surface water will do. When you've got a managed solution in respect of a proposed housing development, then that water is managed and it's directed and stored and dealt with appropriately as part of a managed solution, and therefore you don't get that free flowing water that you would get off a greenfield site.
Okay, thank you for that. Well, thank you very much for the time you've taken this evening, Helen. It's
no problem. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our final speaker on this particular agenda item is Councillor Steadman, the ward councillor. You're on mute. Good evening again.
Good evening again. I hope you're not going to grill me like that.
No, well, depends what you say, doesn't it? It's all for clarification. Councillor Steadman, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Chair, councillors, there's been no attempt by the developer to establish an identified local need, let alone to design the site to satisfy it. SS2 encourages sustainable development on the edge of service centres, but this does not mean that every site is suitable or indeed sustainable. Nor should this policy be read in isolation. A host of other policies apply, and the development plan should be read in its entirety. EN6 proposals would be supported where they do not harm open areas which contribute positively to the individual character, a point highlighted in the inspector's refusal of the adjacent site and enforced in the medium to high sensitivity given to this escarpment in the Leicestershire Growth Plan. That it does not harm open areas which contribute positively to the key characteristics of the conservation area and form key entrances and or gateways to a settlement, which Toffs Hill does. EN1, the site forms part of the Beaver Escarpment, which strongly embodies the character and landscape setting of Stavern and the Leicestershire Wolds. It will have an adverse impact on important views, approaches and settings, not only for Stavern, but the wider vale looking towards the escarpment. Toffs Hill forms part of a national trail and is a popular byway for all users, making the road conditions difficult and congested. EN13, there is strong evidence of important archaeology which needs to be established before it is lost or grubbed out by diggers. EN11, there are grave drainage concerns centred around land slippage, volume of water of this steep incline through the site off the escarpment above, and the proposal for high retaining walls to terrace the site to make the side of this hill amenable to development. There is no assurance that these retaining walls would not fall victim to, or even worse, give rise to landslip, movement or increased flood risk elsewhere in the village or the site itself. The latest report does not fully address these issues given the unique complexities of the site. Taken in isolation and together, these are the reasons why this application should not be regarded as sustainable development. The proposal would have a significant harmful impact on the landscape, built form and character of Stavern, and would be inadequately served by infrastructure and services. It would therefore not constitute sustainable development and would be contrary to policies SS2, EN1, EN6 and EN13 and EN11 in relation to site-specific issues. Councillor Evans, myself and the villagers we represent ask that you oppose this appeal on these points together with the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Steadman. Do we have any questions for clarification only? No, I think no questions. Thank you very much, Councillor Steadman. Right. Well, that concludes the speakers this evening. Officers, do you wish to add or respond to anything that you've heard this evening, Mr. Worley?
Yes, if I may, please, just a few strands there. Within that, there's actually only one thing that I sort of firmly disagree with across all of the speakers, and that's the question of the SS policies that a number of them referred to. And rather than rehearse the whole theory of it, if I can take you to page 25 of your bundle and section 5.1 of the February report, this is the reason why. And it's a section in italics in the middle of the page there. It clearly says under SS2, sites adjacent within or adjoining service centres are acceptable to development. In principle, I'll qualify that in a moment, and SS3 is applicable as well. It's not a case of one or the other. I think everyone would agree that if we were relying on SS3 here, probably even Mr. Broadhurst would agree, relying SS3 here, it would probably fail because it hasn't even been a shadow of an attempt to prove local needs. This is an application that seeks to serve general demand using the provisions of SS2 principally, not SS3.
Thank you for that.
I have a few more, I'm afraid.
Okay, no, keep going.
Yep. with equal conviction, I actually agree with a lot of what the applicants, other speakers said, and certainly the point that just because it's adjacent to a service centre doesn't mean it automatically must be granted this site or any other. Exactly as Mr. Brown, Mr. Bell, and latterly Councillor Steadman said, they all need to be evaluated individually under a host of other policies. And in this case, I think it's probably fair to say landscape comes top of the list. They're all addressed again. I will not go through the whole thing unless you want me to. They're all addressed on page 26 and cover a number of pages from that point forward. And why we've concluded that we have pictures of this site as opposed to a general conversation about the landscape and wider views and so its surroundings as we saw them.
Okay, thank you. You broke up a little bit then, Jim. Yeah. I don't know whether you want to move location or something. Sometimes it goes a bit gobbledy.
Just comment briefly. Obviously, this sounds a bit. Mrs. Where
I'm sorry, Jim. We can't hear you.
You've all too.
You're breaking up.
How about this?
No. Try again.
Councillor Glancy, I think looking at the screen, Jim's image is frozen. So it looks like, yeah, he's got technical problems. I don't know whether you want to move to debate and come back to him.
Did you want to try signing in again, Jim? I think.
The alternative is that you could adjourn for a couple of minutes to see if Jim can sort his technical issues.
I think it's a good idea to adjourn for a few minutes if everybody's agreeable to that while we sort Jim's connectivity out.
Okay, that's fine. I'll just pop everybody on mute for now if that's okay whilst.
I do apologise. Oh, looks like we're back. Are we back? Are you back with us, Mr. Worley?
It looks, Councillor Glancy, as though we're just still waiting for Jim to connect completely.
I know we have a hand raised, which is Councillor Higgins. No, he's come back.
Oh. Can you hear me there, Chair?
I can hear you, yes.
Yeah, it was really just for clarity of question to Mr. Worley, because I haven't had my papers through the post, but I've got it online. So when he says page 26,
it's 24, I think.
Oh, okay, 24. I've got it online here. If there's a paragraph or something where I can be directed, then that would be helpful from what he was saying. That was all, because I was getting a little bit lost.
Yeah, I think the first one was page 24, and that was the policy SS2 provides support to sustainable development. And that's the actual report pack. And the second one I think he was talking about was page 26. But I only heard snippets of it, which is why we were a bit concerned about the connectivity.
Okay, that's fine, because that was the bit I'm trying to find. So
right, okay. No, gone again. Well, we are having problems this evening. Where's he gone?
Would it help Councillor Higgins if we sent him a copy of the agenda pack, which has the page numbers on it? Yes, we'll email it now.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Did you not get your pack then?
I think it's. I've been away, so I think it's at the post office. And it's-
Oh, right, 'cause it was signed for, wasn't it? Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
okay, yeah. So
Yeah.
that will be the one. So it's being.
Right.
I know it's being re-delivered, but it'll be too late
Okay.
for tonight.
Right. Well, I can see Mr. Worley back with us.
Can you hear me too?
Yes. Well done.
Sorry.
So,
Now I understand other people's frustrations.
I know it is frustrating, isn't it? Yeah. So if I could ask you to recap. Now, you mentioned page 24 and 26 of the report, but I don't think anybody really heard what the content of that was that you were trying to outline.
I think I mentioned 25 first.
25.
Which is where we sort of try to navigate our way through the complicated web of policy and conclude that SS2 is the applicable policy here. And the reason for that is this section in the middle of the page that's in italics. And I went further to say that if we thought we were in the territory of SS3, I think most people would agree this application fails because there's not even been an attempt to establish a local need. This isn't in that arena. It's general market needs. And the reason SS2 is applicable is because it's an alternative to SS3, and the words that I've highlighted in italics are those words that say how they operate together rather than against one another.
Right. Okay. I can't see that in italics on page 25, Mr. Worley. I have to admit.
24.
It is 24, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. That I can see it there. Right. So do you follow that, Councillor Higgins?
I'm very clear on which policies SS1, 2, and 3 this falls into. So
Yeah.
I concur with Mr. Worley. It was he was mentioning page 26.
Yeah, I went on to 26 because it's that section of the report, and it goes on for a few pages that addresses all of the environmental considerations and the landscape issues that people have raised. But what it seeks to do is apply those criteria of a range of policies to the very specific circumstances of this site, i.e. this site being the buildings around it, the views that it offers, how far up the slope it is. The details all there, and I won't rehearse it unless you call on me to do so.
Okay.
And that's the point I got cut off.
I know that, but prior to being cut off, we only heard the odd word. So that's why I've just asked you to sort of go over it again. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, just progressing.
Right, you're going to continue now.
And it may be a pedantic point for which I apologise. I picked up Mr. Broadhurst saying that the report we had to consider the recently submitted details on land stability and drainage was a counter report, and I just homed in on the word counter. It was a verification, and it might well have come back to us and said this is the best report ever for all we knew when we commissioned it, but it hasn't. It's come back with doubts, and this is those doubts that for my recommendation tonight. And indeed, if I can answer a question Councillor Holmes asked earlier about whether she can have assurance, I can't give her that assurance because those doubts still exist. And finally, I just would like to comment on the timing question that came from Councillor Faulkner. And Ms. Broader said that we didn't have sufficient time to respond. Well, of course, that's the reason we deferred the application, to create that time to respond, but they didn't. They chose to appeal instead.
Thank you. That was my understanding as well. We wanted to work with them and provide the time to come back to us with answers to the questions that we had raised. But clearly events overtook us. Thank you. Right. Do we have any questions of officers before we move on to the debate?
Councillor Brown.
Councillor Brown. I've just spotted him.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just one for you, Jim. Just the applicant made a statement to say that they'd submitted all of the detailed technical information that showed that this site worked. Could you just clarify whether that is the case or not, please? A simple yes or no would do.
No, in our opinion, and that's why the recommendation is.
That's okay.
It is,
That's all I need, Jim. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions before we start? No. Right, over to you, councillors. Who wants to be first? No? I could normally rely on Councillor Holmes.
All right.
Councillor Holmes.
Right. I am very, very concerned about this site. And I did ask those questions because have ridden around there and in dry weather and wet weather and when it's wet, it really is horrendous. It comes down there, and the shale and everything that comes down there, you know, I'm talking from experience because I've seen it and I've been in it, and I know that actually in the village of Stavern, it does pour right down to the bottom, and you can say, right, with these houses, maybe it'll stop it. But if we don't know what's above it, it's just so incredibly worrying, because grass and trees and rough area, that in itself saves the ground because it soaks in, and it doesn't come down as badly as it would if you're cutting into it. And I just feel so unsafe about the whole thing. I would like to have seen a lot more infrastructure and the mechanics of how it was going to work. I really just can't see how, when we know it is a very dangerous area, that it is going to be safe. And I just have to see more of it. I find it very difficult because we don't know enough about it. And only being a layperson, having been up there and seeing what it's like, that's the only way that I can judge it. And it is quite a dangerous area, really, especially in flood. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Higgins, we have you next.
Yeah, I agree with what Councillor Holmes eloquently put there. And I just, going to Councillor Faulkner's question, I thought the response to it was very concerning, to be honest, is as decision makers, I think you owe it to the applicant and objectors to have all the information before you make the decision. And as Councillor Holmes said, you know, some of this is highly concerning, and as the ward councillor, Councillor Stedman said, and you know, we're being advised by our professional officers not to permit, where originally the February paper was a recommendation to permit, but then when more information came from, albeit late, you can only make the judgment at the time of what you have of the information in front of you. And if you're in any court or any decision making, if something came to light at the last minute, then the judge or decision maker is duty bound to take that into consideration. And we have given, you know, ample time for the applicant to go away and come back on that. And they decided to go straight to appeal. And from when we asked the agent, I don't think they gave, well, they certainly didn't give me any confidence that they know how it's, because the wording I wrote down here is the solution is there, it's just not designed yet. And I'm sorry, I just don't think this is really, as a decision maker, I don't feel comfortable in permitting it. So for all the reasons the officer's given the recommendations, I'll be totally supporting those. I do agree, as I said earlier with Mr. Worley, I don't think this is an SS3 issue because of the way the policy wording is. So I think will be dangerous to bring that in. Just on the you know, the application itself, I actually didn't really like it as well. There's a lot of bungalows, and I think it felt a little bit that there was maybe just getting under the line of Section 106s. So how much of a benefit would the borough get from this application being developed? There's no affordables. So if we're looking at that balancing act, there's not a lot of the benefits other than the market housing. Yeah, to me, I would feel very, very concerned at permitting this or not standing up for the appeal. And I think the objectors and the ward councillor has put a lot of work in and has given cause for concern. So it's not ready. This application is not ready to be decided, and so that naturally would mean a refusal if this was a live application. And that's why I think we should go to the appeal inspector and say that. But I'll listen to the debate of what other members may want to put in. But for me, I just think the recommendation is enough there. If we throw too much in, I would be concerned we were probably weakening our hand.
Okay, thank you for that. I have Councillor Brown next.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to repeat the stuff that Councillor Higgins has said, but I agree with everything that he has said, and I think he summed that up quite well actually with this. I also have concerns about the application, and I feel that, and mainly if we're looking at sustainable development, we should be looking at it the fact that if it's going in, it's adding a benefit, and it's not going to have no any negative impact upon the rest of the community. My concern here is the negative impact it has. I think there's a strong case to say it could negatively impact, and probably would, without us being reassured around the technical drainage issues, around the negative environmental impacts it could have upon other neighbouring houses going up onto the field, looking at it, etc. I think that the question that was asked of the applicant in relation to the topography and the levels, which I think you asked, Chair, of the site, wasn't adequately answered, and that concerned me. I think it is an ill-prepared planning application. Working in housing myself, I know that dealing with retaining walls and dealing with the issues of taking water away from a site safely and making sure it doesn't impact. And what concerns me is I can't see anything that's robust enough to say that around the retaining walls, what are they going to be? Is there going to be enough strength in them? Is the calculations correct? I know we're not going to know all the detail at this stage, but I would expect for an application in such a site to come to us and really give us that assurance. I'm not seeing that assurance on this around the drainage, etc. We could possibly go in around the heritage assets, etc., and the negative impact that has. I'm going to stay away from that because I don't have enough technical knowledge or enough policy knowledge around that. So basically, where I'm going to come from it is that I feel that we should go in and fight our corner in relation to this appeal and put the case to the inspector and basically back up everything that our officers have said. And certainly tonight's actually concerned me more from what I've heard than previously. I was coming into this thinking, actually, if I get some reassurance tonight that there is the details and the engineering and everything behind it, we could possibly go the other way and support it. But there's no way. I have to fully put my weight behind the officers who've written this report. So that's where I stand. I'm going to listen to the rest of the debate because that may change my views slightly, but that's where I am at this moment in time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hewson.
I suppose I'd just like to find out more. We said about the design of the step-in retaining walls, which you haven't had yet. So we can't really make a decision on that if we haven't had the full design of how it's going to work. And it just seems to be the top two properties that seem to be causing a huge amount of the total problem. I just didn't know whether anything could be redressed over the top two plots. After all, there is a bungalow at the bottom as today, and it's just we need more information on the step in and the retaining walls and the drainage to make a proper decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Faulkner.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm full agreement with what Councillor Higgins has said earlier on. It's not really our place to speculate on things, but you know, the fact that we asked for information and rather than give us the information, they went for non-determination suggests to me that they had concerns of what we would say if we actually got the information. So I'm going to stick my neck out here and say I'm going to propose that we go along with the recommendation at 2.1 and instruct the council to go with that and appeal on that and them grounds.
Thank you for that. I'm afraid I'm going to jump in now and sort of second the motion. So I do apologise to others that have their hand raised. It's not often I feel quite strongly about things, but I fully support the view that there was insufficient information in order to fully assess the issues related to the potential impact of land slippage, hydrology and drainage considerations. We have a duty to ensure we make sound decisions, and without the information that we requested, it was very difficult to reach that decision, which is why we gave the developer and the applicant time to come back to us to give some reassurance. That didn't happen. Even though we have the knowledge now of a further report, that has even come back with questions from a sort of independent review. So no, I do fully support the office recommendation at 2.1. So anybody else would like to take part? I think we have Councillor Higgins, you had your hand raised again.
No, very well put, Chair. You, and you were right, I think, as Chair, to come in and very well put comments there. I was just
waiting to see how things were going, and I thought, no, once it's been proposed.
I just had a question just for officers rather than part of the debate, and just because when you look at the site, Mr. Worley, where it says Road 1 and Road 2, what I had a problem with this particular design, and I think that's why I feel it's a bit rushed, but if it was, say, you know, a couple of houses where Road 1 was, we wouldn't be in this kind of realm, would we? That's the feeling I got, Mr. Ward. I don't know, but because to me this design here, I just thought was just I think some members have said it just seems as if it's all just trying to cram as much in. I get why you would do it, try and squeeze the viability up, but it just feels with all this concern of engineering, it's trying to squeeze stuff in where it's just probably not possible. I don't know. That was a question though, Chair.
Question for Mr. Worley.
It's difficult to speculate. Yeah, a different scheme would encounter all of the policies and all of the issues differently, and who knows, it might drive a different result. But to be honest, I haven't really addressed a different scheme except the earlier stages of this one. Yeah, it's always easier to accommodate a smaller number of houses on a site because more room to play with. And yeah, some of these issues could have been avoided altogether, I dare say. But, you know, and if I compare up Councillor Houston's point at this stage as well, you know, the time for suggesting amendments and getting clarification has long gone. It's out of our hands. And indeed, the appeal deadline is Monday. And Andrew and I have got a busy weekend.
Okay, thank you.
So sorry, just on that, with that answer, Chair, and just a follow-up question to Mr. Worley is because you know, in this design, are we able to you know, fight this particular design and put that into the reasons, or would you know, what's your professional view on that?
Yeah,
because obviously
the plan in front of you and that I had on the slides is the fixed position now. That is what you're judging. As I said, there's no scope to change it anymore because it's gone. So if you have criticisms that amount to reasons for refusal in indefinite renewal or sound grounds to oppose the appeal, to be more precise with my language, so now is the time to do it, and they should be based on this scheme.
Okay. Again, Chair, I'll listen to more of the debate, but I was concerned with that type of housing mix and the number of houses. I know it's low density, but where say road 2 was going, I think it was causing the scheme more problems, and that's probably where we're going with it. But if someone wants to add that in, that's, I don't know. I'll leave that for debate, Chair, at the moment.
Mr. Power, I see you have your hand raised. Sorry, I must have overlooked you. I do apologise. You're on mute.
Okay, no worries. I just wondered if I could get a little bit more clarification from Jim, because listening to the debate and the presentation by officers, it's pretty clear that officers are recommending a technical reason for refusal to do with drainage, hydrology and stability. And from listening to the debate, I can see that members have more or less endorsed that. But I also thought that Jim had said that the reasons that, or the matters that are listed at 5.2 of the report, which rely a lot on subjective judgment, on impact on character, impact on the nearby conservation area, impact on landscape and surrounding countryside, were things that he also thought could properly be added. But I'd be interested to hear his comment on that.
Yeah, exactly right. Thanks, Mr. Power. Yeah, especially the use of the word. So those sections that we've written is reasons why we don't think they make the grade in terms of reasons for refusal or opposition as it is now. But they are exactly that, judgments, and you may judge differently.
Yeah.
Which I said, this is what I was trying to say in my introduction, an hour ago.
Could I just say, if members want to pick those reasons up, it might be prudent to give a delegated authority to the officers to craft the reasons for refusal. That the members may wish to say, if they do decide that they want to contest this appeal, that they say we decide that it should be contested on these broad reasons. Obviously, I suspect one will be the technical ground, but then they may want to mention the others and give authority to officers to craft the actual reasons. In effect, we would be saying, if the application was before us for determination, we would refuse it on these grounds. That's all, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Faulkner, I see you have your hand raised. Did you want to add something into your proposal?
Yes, well, the original thing I'd written down, apart from what the officers had said, is that the harm caused by this development is outweighs the benefits from the development. But I'm quite happy to leave things to the officers to draft some other proposals and come back and for yourself and myself to agree them before they're submitted.
I must admit, I had written a few down as well, just during the debate. I do think it's contrary, well, my personal opinion, it's contrary to SS2 and question its sustainability in view of the many local plan policies we have in place. I think EN1, the adverse effect on the important landscape, that landscape is important to Stathern and the surrounding area. EN6, harmful to the settlement character and appearance of the area. And EN13, lacking positive contribution to the character and distinctiveness of the local area. But I would look to you, Councillor Faulkner, to agree that as you're the proposer.
Well, yes, Chair. I mean, I'm in favour of all of that. If you want to put that in at this point, that's great. But if the officers want to come with anything else, I'm quite happy to have other things added as well if necessary. But I think with what you've said and what the officers have already put in, that's going to be ample for putting our points across quite well.
Okay, thank you. It's just this sort of general thing about the application. We're not happy with it, are we?
No.
Right, Councillor Higgins, I see you're next.
Yeah, I think you've pretty much, and obviously as the solicitor's pretty much got where my other concerns were, the subjective concerns. So I think I appreciate that with you on there. Is for me is when you look at the scheme, as obviously it's just a 2D scheme, and if it's a flat piece of ground, I don't necessarily have the issues with it, but as the sloping and the retaining walls, it will then get this. I think one of the speakers was talking about that, and as you look at it, I think it will just detract from it. How much so? It does seem to me as if it's not going to be the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, though, is it? So I just think we're going to see a lot of brick and a lot of retaining wall, and a lot of that character is just going to go. And so I'm not very comfortable with it. And as Councillor Faulkner said, I don't think the harms outweigh the benefits of this particular scheme. Thank you. So I'll be supporting the proposal.
I think I agree with you there. Mr. Power, I see your hand is raised again.
Sorry to be a nuisance, Chairman.
Yeah, don't worry.
Two members say we brought back, but I get the impression that Jim's under a very tight timescale to get this out. And in that event, I'm thinking that members need to give officers the headings and rely on officers to draft it or put meat on the bone. But Jim can comment, I'm sure.
I think we've got the headlines, and basically, it's the juxtaposition to what we've written. So it's not a whole new science we have to learn.
No. I thought I'd already given the headlines for this.
And he stated the policies for us as well. It's
right, sorry. Thank you.
Landscape and landscape impact.
Yes, EN1, EN6, EN13, and contributor SS2.
The result.
Yes, Councillor Faulkner, did you want to come back?
Yeah, I was just going to say, obviously, with the reasons we've now given, I think everything is fine. It's just that if the office thought we'd missed something out, they could come back to us, or we just delegate to it if he thinks we've missed it out. And because obviously we are on such a tight time limit, so I'm happy with it.
Yes, I'm quite happy with that as well. Does anybody else want to make a contribution? Or do we have Mr. Power with his hand raised? Thank you. Right, no other contributions? No. Okay, well, thank you very much for that. Well, we have a proposal and a second to I've just lost my notes again, so I've made all these notes and I put them down. In line with the recommendation 2.1, that the committee instructs that the appeal is opposed on the basis that there remains insufficient information to enable a conclusion to be drawn on the issues of land stability, hydrology, and as a result of the inadequacy of the proposed drainage system. Plus, having fully reviewed the application, we think it's in conflict with EN1, EN6, EN13, and I'm sure the officers could sort of add that wording in there for me. Do you want me to read it all out now? No, seem to have gone.
I'm certainly clear on the essence, and the rest of the committee is as well. So this landscape character, landscape impact, and character on the immediate that part of Southern.
Okay, thank you. So that's clear for everybody. Right, well, we've had the proposal and it's been seconded. I will just go around the councillors now for your vote, for, against, or abstain. And the first one is Councillor Bindloss.
For, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Chandler.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Faulkner.
For.
Councillor Glancy. For. Councillor Hewson.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Higgins.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Holmes.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Posnett. Thank you. Councillor Steadman?
No, she's not there.
Oh no, she's not there, is she? Shows she's nowhere to be seen. Sorry, I'm in autopilot now. And Councillor Wood?
Or
Thank you very much.
Councillor Clancy, sorry,
No.
can I just ask you to go back to Councillor Posnett to reconfirm her vote, because I didn't hear it. I don't know if it was just my connection, or I don't know if everybody else did. But...
Okay, Councillor Posnett?
For.
Thank you very much. That's confirmed. Thank you. Right, that is 4.1 completed. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much to the speakers for coming along this evening. Right, agenda item 4.2, which is 19-00859/out, field OS 6260, Canal Lane, Hove. Over to officers to address the committee to provide the report, and it's Andrew Cunningham. Good evening, Andrew.
Hi there. Is Jim sharing the presentation?
I'm going to do the necessary.
Okay, yes, please.
There we go.
Trying to.
Can I just confirm that you can all hear me? So.
Yes, we can. I can also, well, can also see.
And
there we go.
the presentation. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
This application before you seeks outline planning permission for the erection of 34 dwellings on land at Canal Lane in Hose. Only the matter of access is sought for approval, with the layout plan submitted for indicative purposes only. There it is. The site is allocated for housing in both the Melton Local Plan and Neighbourhood Plan, and outline planning permission has been granted previously on the site, totalling 41 dwellings. Contributions to primary and secondary education provision, civic amenities, NHS and sustainable travel provision are to be secured by a Section 106 agreement. Affordable housing provision of 32%, that's 11 dwellings, is also required. The applicant has submitted a financial viability assessment. However, as this is based on an assumed housing mix only, it would be considered inappropriate to conclude on a detailed viability review at this outline stage. As such, condition 4 is recommended to ensure that the full affordable housing provision is secured on this application, with the tenure mix determined at a later date once the scheme has developed in detail through to reserved matters. The housing mix in the committee extract is indicative only and will be finalised at reserved matters stage in line with the local needs at that time. Notwithstanding this, the indicative mix provided is in accordance with the Neighbourhood Plan Policy H5, which states that the inclusion of 4 beds will be supported where they are subservient in number to 1, 2 and 3 beds. 2 access points are proposed. If Jim could go to the next slide, please. One serving all 34 dwellings, and that's in the centre of the site there, and the other for maintenance access to the attenuation pond. As per the previously approved outline application, this current development also proposes a scheme of highway improvements to Canal Lane, including road widening, a village gateway pinch point feature, as you can see closely there, and a footpath linking the development to the village. The Local Highways Authority raises no objections to the proposed access points, nor the improvements to Canal Lane. No concerns are also raised on grounds of residential amenities, ecology, archaeological matters, contamination or drainage, and as such, the application is recommended for approval subject to conditions and a Section 106 agreement. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yeah, do we have any questions of the officer before we start? Nope. Okay, thank you. I have one question, Andrew. The inclusion of a 5 metre buffer to the hedgerow, is that part of the garden, the 5 metres, or is that going to be outside of the garden boundaries?
It'll be outside of the garden boundaries.
Okay, that was because it wasn't quite clear. Thank you. Thank you. Right, well, this evening we have 3 speakers. The first one is Councillor McCulloch, and Councillor McCulloch is from Howes and Harby, Clawson, Howes and Harby Parish Council. We'd like to call. Good evening again.
Good evening.
Good evening. You have 3 minutes.
Right. Chair, councillors. I'm speaking on behalf of Clawson, Howes and Harby Parish Council. Throughout the development of the proposal for this site, the Parish Council has worked very hard to reach an acceptable compromise with the developers on this application and look forward to further meetings to shape this site. Unfortunately, even though we have these detailed discussions with the developer, there remains 4 outstanding items which we'd like to raise here. The first item is the access point to the development. We'd like the location of the entrance to be returned to the original position, reference 15.00944 out. This shows the entrance more towards the village. The reason for this is that it enables a significant proportion of the existing hedge line along Canal Lane to be retained. The second item is to make the access to the pumping station internal. Again, this will enable more of the existing hedge to be retained, saving the destruction of wildlife habitats. Once lost, it can take decades to return to its former state, if at all. The third item is the removal of the pinch point. The rural approach to the village from Canal Lane is a single track for the most parts. Approaching the village, the road widens slightly just before reaching a series of 3 90-degree bends: Bolton Lane, Chapel Lane and the Green. These bends naturally reduce the speed of the incoming vehicles into the village. From your site visit, you will have seen this is a very rural area. An engineered pinch point in the road with raised curbs and the accompanying street furniture and signage is an unnecessary and unwelcome addition to the area and will detract from this very historic part of the village. We appreciate that this is outside the remit of the developers to grant. This is for you to decide. We therefore ask if you could please condition that this pinch point be removed from the application to maintain the continuity of the rural village environment. Finally, we ask that if the plans are passed, that there is a section 106 element of granting a £15,000 payment towards a climbing frame for the village play area. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for that. Do we have any questions of the speaker? No, I can't see the panelists now because of the presentation that's on screen.
Councillor Glancy, I can tell you that we've got Councillor Chandler and Councillor Higgins wishing to speak.
Councillor Chandler, if you'd like to be first.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. May I ask the chairman of the parish council or the member of the parish council who's just spoken, have they ever done a housing needs survey? Because I am most concerned about putting 14 4-bedroom houses in Howes. I mean, we've got a surplus in Bottisford of 4-bedroom houses wherever you look, and they can't sell them. And I just wonder, has a housing needs survey been done? Because they are excellent. And I mean, I went to the Rural Housing Conference in Nottingham last autumn. Sadly, I was the only Melton councillor there, but a lot of our parish councils were represented and they were all queuing up to get housing needs surveys done. And I just wondered if one has been done here, because I don't think the locals would have gone for 14 4-bedroom houses out of a total of 34. Thank you.
I'm new to being a parish councillor, so I don't actually know if there has been one done. I can look it up, but this is the first of 3 developments in Howes. So we will end up with 107 houses altogether if all 3 sites are developed.
Thank you.
If I may come back, Madam Chairman.
Of course you can.
If you're going to have over 100 houses and you're having a proportion like we've got here, I mean, it's going to be flooded with houses that people can't afford to buy, and there's nowhere for local people to go and live. I mean, there is still this demand in villages for affordable housing. I don't know how many more times I have to say this, but I mean, Councillor Pritchett and I in Bottisford, we're being told constantly we need more and more affordable houses. We're losing people to Grantham because they can't afford to buy houses in Bottisford because they're all too big for them. So I think this is something we need to address. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Higgins was next, was he?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for your presentation there. And as a new parish councillor coming to this for the first time, well done. I thought your 3 minutes was very clear and concise. So congratulations to you there. My question focuses around where you're talking about the speed reduction and the street furniture. And just so I can better understand what you feel that the community are asking for, because I do have an acute awareness that a lot of villages don't want urbanisations of their communities, and they feel, and the former MP Sir Alan Duncan certainly always felt that you could design these without necessarily street furniture. He was vehemently against it. So I'd just like to get your feeling of how that, and if you could expand on that, because obviously that could form part of the debate, and obviously any change in section 106 may alter it to what you've just requested.
So you're on about the pinch point. The pinch point
That's right.
The pinch point into the village at the moment is proposed to be 3 metres. While I was viewing the site earlier this week, I actually measured a piece of machinery going through from Canal Lane into the village at 3.2 metres. So it wouldn't be able to pass through that. It would have to be wider. The road at the moment is only 4 metres wide.
Okay, so
this is why we were asking for it to actually be removed. If there is curbs, the raised curbs, and also the signage that they have into the village wouldn't enable the farm machinery to go through from one end of the village to the other.
Just so I'm clear, so the signage, is this all new signage, or is this replacing signage?
No, there's no signage there at the moment. This would be new, completely new signage.
Okay, from the original. Anyway, and you mentioned raised curbs. Is this like the curbs that you see a normal pedestrian curb, or is this where you get these raised curbs that you get where it's literally trying to stop larger vehicles coming through, and it's quite significant curb?
Yes. Yeah. I understand that it would make the vehicles going through would have to go through 2 curbs, one either side of the road, to actually narrow the road. And if it narrows it to 3 metres, so only a vehicle with a wheel width of 3 metres can actually pass through. Now, the farm machinery that goes through to the farm that is actually in the village wouldn't, and it has fields that's down Canal Lane, wouldn't be able to pass through that pinch point. So we were asking if they could actually remove that. At the moment, I measured the road and it is only 4 metres with grass verges at the moment.
And my last question on that, Chair. So would you prefer, rather than hard furniture, more of a discreet where it's softer, so like there's lines either on the road just to narrow the speed of vehicles rather than trying to make it difficult for vehicles to navigate. Is that what you're suggesting to the committee?
Yes, if it could be written onto the road itself, that would help, because the machinery would still be able to get up and down the road.
Okay, thank you. That's been very helpful, Chair. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions? Oh, there we go. Right. No more hands raised. Right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Our next speaker this evening is Helen Cheetham or Cheetham. If you could call Helen forward, please. Hello. I think you're on mute.
Apologies, it took a while to get up.
Right, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I appreciate the effort the developer has made to engage with the village residents through the parish council and do not object to the current application in principle, but I have serious concerns regarding the proposed access plan on a personal and a village basis. I understand that the developer is not in a position to alter this, but that the planning committee are. The current application proposes a traffic calming feature immediately outside my property, which narrows the road to 3 metres, 50 centimetres narrower than the former approved application. We require access for 9-metre long glider trailers and a caravan. Clearly, such a narrow feature in this position will be a major issue for us. Furthermore, the village is fortunate to have 3 working farms with associated farm machinery movements. The proposed pinch point will make it challenging, if not impossible, for the farm traffic. This may potentially lead to incursions over curbs and damage to signage with associated noise and safety concerns. The majority of the existing road is less than 4 metres in width, with 90-degree bends within metres of the proposed feature. This currently acts to naturally control traffic speeds. Hence, I appeal to the planning committee to condition the removal of the requirement for a pinch point. Also, whilst I welcome the developer's decision to reduce the number of access points to the site from the original 4 to 2, the access to the proposed pumping stations remain on Canal Lane rather than being internal to the site. This proposed service access is close to the point where the road currently floods, an annual occurrence when the ditch system is overloaded. The splays and 5-metre inset, which are understandably required by the highways, will produce additional hard surfaces, which can only exacerbate this flooding from road runoff. If this access was required to be internal, it would have 2 key benefits for the village. It will prevent additional water runoff on the existing road, thereby reducing the potential for flooding. It will also enable a greater length of the original hedgerow to be preserved, thereby retaining the rural approach to the village, the loss of which is a concern of many locals. It will also have associated ecological benefits, which is a strong focus in our neighbourhood and the Melton local plans. I appreciate your consideration of my concerns and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I see we have Councillor Higgins has his hand raised. Did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, very similar to the first one. So, hi, hello there, Helen. Just for my own benefit and my colleagues' benefit, has Leicestershire County Council or the Highways Authority discussed these kind of road measures with you, and have the planning officers, because obviously you've raised objections and things like that, what kind of dialogue have you had in shaping this response from the Highways Authority?
Personally, I've had none at all. I wasn't even informed, as living opposite the development. We've never had any communication with planning. I only became aware of it when I actually joined the parish council, but as a neighbour of the site, considered I ought to approach you as an individual rather as the parish council.
Okay. Could I just ask while we have the objector on. Obviously, the case officer is here. It just so I can, before we lose the speaker, you know, has this dialogue happened or not? Because it feels if people haven't really been talking from what I'm hearing anyway.
Sorry, is that to me or to Andrew?
The case officer at the moment, and then, you know, so the question really is highways, have they consulted the neighbours? Do you feel they've consulted with the neighbours? Did we as the local planning authority consult the neighbours on these specific highways? I don't want to necessarily say improvements, but infrastructure.
I suppose the highways sort of works to Canal Lane are the same as previously approved in the 2015 application. So when we've consulted with the neighbours, it would have been sort of the whole application in general, really. And the highway works to Canal Lane sort of, it's only the access that is changing position from the previous sort of approved scheme. I wouldn't be able to comment on whether highways themselves have sort of spoken with the neighbours, but they do assess sort of other accesses in the vicinity of sort of this development. So they haven't raised any sort of objections, given the improvements to Canal Lane, really.
Okay, I think I've got enough, Chair, but I'll have to say I'm not quite convinced there's been enough conversation between highways and neighbours here. That's my only thing.
I think I've sort of concluded that I don't think highways probably were aware of the need of sort of Helen and how much width she would need on the road to get their vehicles in and out of the property. So they probably haven't got that local knowledge. Councillor Holmes, I believe you have a question. There we go.
Yes, when Councillor Chandler and I went on a site visit, we had to get right on the side because it just was a small car coming down. And if I could just ask the lady, how much farm traffic, wide farm traffic, comes down that road, goes down that canal road? Because I think it's considerable. There was a big tractor went down as well, and I'm a bit aghast that it was in 15 that we actually made these provisions, because since then, I know it's only 15 and we're only 5 years, but I can assure you all agricultural implements are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So we have less people working on the land. And I think we really have got to look at that. But I just wanted to ask the lady if she had seen how many big vehicles and big farm vehicles went down there. That was all. If I could ask that question, please.
So you can certainly ask. Unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to give you an exact number, but certainly several movements a day. It's not the extremely large equipment that will pass through. The village is too small for that, but the tractors go through without the equipment on, we say, a handful of times at least each day. Today, when Councillor McCulloch was talking about, yesterday, was a tractor with a baler on the back going backwards and forwards to the fields on that account. But I'm afraid I can't give you precise numbers. I don't have them.
Oh no, quite. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have Councillor Steadman next.
Yeah, actually, I have a question for either Andrew or Jim while Helen's still online. Is this pinch point actually a requirement of the Highways Authority? Have they requested it because otherwise this development can't go ahead? Or has the developer offered to put this in as a benefit to the site? In other words, what I'm asking, could we be in a position to say, no, we don't want this, and it won't create a problem for this development going forward?
originally when the application was when this current application was submitted, the works to Canal Lane weren't being sort of submitted as part of the drawings. The Highways Authority did request that they submit the detailed sort of drawings that you've seen on PowerPoint as part of this current application. I know they had concerns in the 2015 application, and it was at that point the applicant of that application sort of provided these improvements. The Highways Authority sort of didn't request exactly what improvements they wanted. It was more of a case of they needed to sort of have the highways improvements in order to make the development sort of satisfactory from their point of view. It's difficult to say exactly which part of those improvements the Highways Authority have specifically requested, because all they've requested as part of this application is the same as what was approved on the previous application.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Any more questions of Helen? Councillor Posnett.
Thank you. Just looking at the report, this is a question for Andrew, really. It says that LC Highways have got no objections subject to conditions, and then all they're asking about is contributions. So there isn't actually, or I've not read the report properly, I can't actually see anything that LCC have said as regards access or the road. And to me, that's the most important part. I mean, I went to a lovely circuitous route to Canal Lane. I got on Canal Lane at Long Clawson, and I had a lovely drive round. And okay, my car's not small, but it's not extra large either. And I did come across a couple of cars, and we did both have to pull over slightly onto the grass so that, you know, we could get by each other. And then when I saw this electronics factory or whatever it was called there, I just wondered how, if they were having lorries, how traffic did actually cope with that. But I'd just like to know whether LCCs have actually given a proper highways report.
Yes, their initial response sort of requested these additional works as the applicant hadn't provided them. So following the submission of the access plan that you've seen on the presentation, the highways comments of the 28th of November. So they're not in the report as such, they'll be on the planning documents, but they've said the local highways authority advised the applicant that a scheme of highway improvements, including road widening and an improved village gateway feature required as part of the extant permission for 41 dwellings on the site, remained required for the proposed development. So they did sort of request those details provided as part of this application in order to sort of make sure that the development didn't lead to severe highway safety impacts. They don't raise any sort of concerns with the access points themselves either, in terms of the widths, the footways, and the visibility displays from them as well. So,
okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Worley, did you have seen your hand raised?
Yeah, please, just an overview on these points. So,
do we still need Helen in meeting now? I think that have we asked all the questions of Helen. No more questions. Right, thank you very much, Helen. I thought perhaps there's going to be another question for you from Councillor Posnett, but there wasn't. Okay, thank you. Right, sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Worley, if you'd like to continue.
Yeah, just an overview. I mean, highways say no objections subject to conditions, meaning that assuming you apply those conditions, and it's at condition 11. So that's the focal point of the debate here on page 71. At the end of the day, the Highways Authority are advisors to the committee, and you're not bound to follow their advice slavishly. No. If you think there's equal argument for not having this feature, in this case, it's within your purview to make that call.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Fine.
I saw Councillor Steadman's hand raised again.
Thank you, Chair.
Is this?
Yeah.
Is this a question for the officers before we hear the next speaker? We're still in the speaker's realm at the moment.
Oh, right. Okay, we'll leave it in the speaker's realm then. I'll come back.
Okay,
I'll have to
thank
write
you.
it down though.
Okay, write it down and then you'll know where to ask. Councillor Parsons, you still have your hand raised?
Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Right, our third speaker this evening is Adrian Kerrison from Plumtree Homes. If you'd like to bring Adrian forward, please. Good evening.
Good evening.
Sorry to have kept you.
No, that's okay.
Thank you.
I was going to say quite a few things, but I think since from the debate I've seen, this all boils down to the road widening issue. I'd just like to perhaps correct a couple of things that have been said by the parish council. This road widening scheme was driven by the county council. It's their view that if the site is going to be developed for housing in accordance with a local plan, it can't be developed for housing unless Canal Lane is widened. And I think the only reason for the pinch point is because you can't get full widening along the entire length of the road within the highway. It has to go down to one lane at one point, or you can't do the road widening. So that's the reason for the design. It's not something we've proposed. It's something that the county council effectively demanded in order for the site to be used for housing. And it is identical to the scheme that's been previously approved. So I'd find difficulty in changing it now when it is already approved. And I'm not sure what else we could do, because that is the result of the highway engineer from our side and the county council's highway engineer agreeing the means that this site can be developed from a technical highway point of view. I think in answer to, I think it was Councillor Higgins, as far as I'm aware, it's not one of those big raised concrete curbs that tries to stop vehicles. It's just the fact that the road has to pinch in with a normal curb line in order to get the widening. And as far as farm vehicles are concerned, well, I don't know, but I'm fairly certain you don't get combine harvesters and farm vehicles with very wide attachments travelling through the centre of Hose. A tractor and a trailer would certainly pass through the 3 metre point, and county council will take account of the width of vehicles that need to be accommodated. So I don't think the farm, the very wide farm vehicles that we're all aware of and we've all seen is the issue, because they wouldn't go through Hose anyway. They'd perhaps go up from the other direction up Canal Lane to get to farms and fields, but they wouldn't go through the village. So I don't think that's an issue. So we're willing to look at anything, but the problem I'd have if that becomes an issue in tonight's debate, we've already had this application in for 12 months. We are desperate to make a start on site. I think we have engaged extensively with the parish council. I think Councillor Steadman will probably back me up on that. And we've done everything I think we can. But if you're worried about this technical highway issue, it will be going against the recommendations of the county, who have certainly looked at it in detail.
Thank you. Any questions of the speaker? We have one from Councillor Steadman.
Yes, Chair. I was wondering again if I could, while we've got Adrian sat there, if I could just have further clarification on this. So Adrian is saying it is a condition for highways, which I understand, that this road is widened outside this site for visibility displays, pavements, etc. But Andrew said, and a gateway feature. Now, how do we interpret gateway feature? Because we have gateway features entering this village, and there are literally little gates on either side of the road that denotes the boundary to the village. Could we say, yes, we are as Councillor Higgins suggested, have some white chevrons on the road indicating the narrowing, but without actually doing the narrowing, so that we could change the condition, as Jim suggested, on page 71 to reflect that. Is that possible?
Did you want to respond, Adrian?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to do that, provided it's a condition and we're not sort of in a deferral position to go away again, because we just can't take any more time with this one. As far as we know, we've complied with everything we've been asked to do. But if it can be dealt with by condition, and we can do that for the better, you know, pinch point gateway feature in another way under a condition, I'm quite happy with that.
Could we ask Mr. Worley for clarification of that, please?
Yeah, certainly, although Mr. Kerrins has almost taken the words out of my mouth. It depends how strongly I feel from where I'm sitting. You could, if you think this thing's not necessary at all, you can just delete that condition, or as he's just suggested, we could configure a set of words that require its redesign, a different approach.
Thank you. Right, I see we have some more questions of Adrian. We have Councillor Bindloss.
It's just a quick one, really. With regards to the pinch point, what's the overall reduction from the current width of the road to what it will be with the pinch point in it, please?
I believe, I haven't got that plan in front of me, but perhaps Jim could get it back up on the screen. I think the road is about 4 metres at the moment. I think it would be widened in most of the entire length to 5 metres, but you just can't carry that 5 metres on into the village because the highway isn't wide enough to do it. Hence, it has to go down to.
Yeah, I just wanted to know really what the difference would be from what it is now to what it will be when the pinch point.
Well, most of it will be a metre wider for about 100 metres.
Yeah.
And then just as you come into the village, it goes down to 1 lane to 3 metres.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Here we go. We've got it on screen now.
It's this here. This area here, you can see the pinch point and the road markings just about make them out.
Yeah.
You've seen the thing. Trying to think of a local example. One of my villages, it happens.
Right, so it goes down.
Yeah, for oncoming traffic coming the other way.
Okay, that's fine, thank you. Right, I didn't notice any other questions for Adrian. Are there any more, Natasha?
I would just check for you now. We've got Councillor Bindloss has his hand raised.
Sorry, I'll drop it down. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
And as does Jim Worley, but I think that's probably from a previous comment. Yes.
Okay, that's brilliant.
Yeah. Councillor Glancy, before you move on, please could I ask, we lost Councillor Chandler for a few moments.
Yes.
I just want to check that. I know we can't see Councillor Chandler as she's had to change to a different device, but I want to make sure that she can be heard and can raise her hand. And I just wondered if you wanted to check that with her.
Okay, we can do. Councillor Chandler, can you hear me? You take it off mute. She's muted at the moment.
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Right, we can hear Councillor Chandler and she can hear us. Thank you. Right, well, I think that concludes the questions for you. I think Mr. Worley had his hand raised, but I don't think that's to do with you, Adrian. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming along this evening. Right. Well, that concludes the speakers for this application. Do we have any comments on what you've heard this evening, Andrew? Or any further points you want to make?
Not from myself. I think Jim was going to raise something about
Okay.
You probably spotted it as well. In fact, I know you did because Councillor Higgins mentioned it. At the end of the parish council representatives speech, she mentioned she made a request for a section 106.
Yeah.
I have to say that's taken us by surprise because this application's been in the offing for, what is it, 15 months, Andrew, or something like that. And this is literally the 11th hour. This is the first time we've heard a request. But probably more importantly, it's not been made out. We don't know what it is, what it's for, how it's justified. So there's no way we can conclude whether it complies with the seal regulations that govern these matters. So really feel that we have no option but to decline that.
Okay, thank you. Right, so do we have any questions of officers before we, for further clarification before we start the debate? Councillor Higgins.
So I think because obviously this pinch point's, it's heavily featured already. So just as an idea, and it would be very useful to get Jim or Andrew's view on this. So I think we've got 3 options. We either totally do away with it, we keep it as it is, because to be fair to the Highways Authority, they are the experts, and obviously they've put it in for what they feel is good reasons. Or there's a more softer version of, I think, as Councillor Steadman was trying to get to. So just with the officers in terms of, and I think we were saying is just deal it with by condition. I thought the applicant was very clear on that one. In terms of working with the officers, of getting a softer option, and rather than a load of signs and hard physical concrete, is that something that you've worked with in the past to try and get a feature of where it's hitting where LCC are trying to get it to, but it's not as urbanizing as street furniture that it could be? And that's the bit I worry about. So it's just to officers before we start the debate there, Chair.
Okay.
Yeah, as you can imagine, I've had a few of those over the years, and I've got a current one where almost exactly the same debate is alive at Stavan, funnily enough, for the big site in Stavan as you come down, is it Mill Hill into Stavan, where people want something and there's concerns that it'll be too brutal. So we're looking for a more sympathetic approach.
Okay.
That answers my question, so thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Steadman, do you have a question for officers?
Yes, I do. I think Councillor Higgins and I are coming at this from different directions, actually. Councillor Higgins said it is a condition of Leicestershire County Council, a pinch point. But Andrew actually said a gateway feature. I assume there is some difference between a feature and a hard engineered solution in the road. Could I have some clarification on that, please? What the difference is between the two, and which one we should be looking to represent, if either?
Who wants to take that question? Mr. Worley?
Yeah, okay. My understanding is that it's a combination of both. I'll get the plan up again if necessary. It comprises a narrowing of the road and then features of either side which sort of form the gateway.
So not necessarily a hard engineered pinch point that you kind of see on the way into Asserby, for example. It doesn't have to be raised curbs. It could actually be just something in the grass verge that denotes the edge of village.
Because the conditional approach could get us there. So, for example, I was asked earlier about examples. The gates you have into Long Clawson coming down on Melton Road, they were done by us through the planning process.
Well spotted, Mr. Worley. So we could do something like that, which wouldn't require street signage or anything, really.
Or minimal, or at least sympathetic, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I mean, to follow this through, what we'd propose is change the condition to say a revised scheme must be submitted for our approval, and our approval will incorporate the Highways Authority.
Okay, thank you. That's the way out of it. Mr. Power, I see you have your hand raised.
Sorry, Jim's really just mentioned the point. I was going to say that if you want to change it, you'd probably have a condition that says that a scheme to be submitted for our approval, and doubtless we discuss it with LCC. And I don't think we really know that LCC would actually object to a softer approach. We just know that this has been what was approved before, I think.
Okay, thank you. Right, so I think that concludes the questions of officers. If you'd like to pop your hand down again, Mr. Power, thank you. Right, so it's over to you members to start the debate. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I'm going to try and move this on this debate. Haven't been up on the site, except looking at the narrow road on it. I am very sympathetic to the local residents and the parish council around mainly the pinch points and the access. I think the accesses to me are absolutely fine. It's just basically the narrowing of the road, and as coming from a farmer background myself, same as many here on the committee, you know, machinery is big, etc. It will get bigger, and I do have some sympathy with the neighbour as well around the access coming out. So I'm going to make a proposal and say that we approve this application with an amendment or recommendation that we vary the road layout that's more sympathetic. I have seen this in my professional life, going around the country in Oxfordshire, in the Cotswolds, and in Cornwall. So you can do it in areas, and it might even reduce the cost to the developer, stroke the county council. So if somebody was willing to come in and second me on that, I'd wish to put that proposal forward.
Waiting for a seconder. Councillor Posnett.
Thank you. Yes, I am happy to second the proposal, and I'm happy with the development. I still do think that 14 4-bedroom houses is too much, but see how we go on with the debate. If there's more debate, but I'm happy to second the proposal.
Thank you. Yeah, I just have one question. I'm just going to sort of jump in here. We mentioned about 4-bedroom houses. Are they 4-bedroom or is it 4+ bedrooms? I think I read somewhere it was 4+ bedrooms, so that could mean 5. That's my sort of problem with this. If you could respond to that, either Andrew or Jim.
I understand them to be 4-bed.
Right. Okay.
But the housing mix would be confirmed at the reserve matters stage. So I think it's condition 3. I think it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would sort of secure the mix.
Right. Okay. Councillor Steadman.
Sorry. Yes, Chair. The 4-bed is actually part of our neighbourhood plan policy, and the neighbourhood plan policy states, and I believe Adrian said this earlier, providing they are subservient in number to 1, 2 and 3-bedroomed houses, which they are. So it does actually meet our policy. I am prepared to support this proposal, providing we take this pinch point out. I'd also like to congratulate the applicant on his flexibility on this site. We did ask rather a lot of the gentleman, and he has come through with what we've asked for and some very good compromises. And I think it sets a good example for future sites within the borough on how to communicate with applicants. Thank you.
Yes, I must admit, we did attend some, but I did facilitate a few meetings on this one. So yes, it has turned out rather well. We have Councillor Higgins next.
Yeah, that's really pleasing to hear as well. And I think with applicants and developers, when they're doing that, you know, Melton is open for business. We do need housing delivery, and people need houses and homes. Just to caveat all that with, because obviously this is outlined, and as Andrew Cunningham was saying, is housing mix is important, especially as Councillor Chandler said earlier, so is affordable housing. And it's very clear from what the Housing Policy Officer has put in here, it is very important for this parish and this part of the world as well. Just wanted to, I didn't ask the question of the applicant, but the updated NPPF tends to ask how much was paid for the land, because the new guidance makes very clear that the price paid for land must account for the council's affordable housing requirement. And that has been in place for a number of years, even before the local plan was formally adopted. And it also suggests that developers receive a reasonable rather than competitive return. So just to quote what the government is very clear on, under no circumstances will the price paid for land be relevant justification for failing to accord with relevant policies in the plan. We have a plan on affordable housing, and while I would like to see affordable housing delivered here, with those compromises, the 4 beds to me seems too high, but if it all works out and we deliver the affordable housing and the right affordable housing, I think this going on to reserve matters. But all I would put that warning out, any further changes or whatever starts to tip the balance to a no, to a refusal, because there's far too many 4 beds here. So let's deliver the affordable housing, let's get them built, and let's get people working and some jobs into the economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, any other contributions to the debate? No. Okay, well, we've had a...
Councillor Glancy, through you, if you're agreeable, I know that sometimes when Councillor Chandler's changed devices, we sometimes have had issues with the raised hand function. I didn't know if you wanted to just ask before you go to the, if you're going to go to the vote.
Okay.
I'll unmute Councillor Chandler now.
Thank you. Ah, we have a raised hand. Councillor Chandler.
Yes.
Good evening, Councillor Chandler. Did you want to contribute to the debate?
Well, I think I made my point about housing needs and affordable housing, as Councillor Higgins has already mentioned. And I feel very strongly, as you know, about having affordable housing on these sites in villages. And I share his concerns. I couldn't care less what they've paid for the land, that they should be providing houses that people want and need.
That's right. I totally agree with you there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, well, I think we have completed the debate now. So we have a proposal to permit. It's been proposed and seconded. So I'll now go through the list of councillors to get your vote for, against or abstain.
That's subject to the revised condition, isn't it, Chairman? The condition that we... Yeah.
Subject to the revised condition, sorry, I forgot about that, regarding the pinch point. And to be honest with you, I think it's only right that we do that, because it's not acceptable that something is going to be installed where a neighbour cannot get off their drive with their vehicles. So it seems pretty ludicrous to me. But anyway, yes, if I go through the names alphabetically, and the first one is Councillor Bindloss.
4.
Thank you. Second one is Councillor Brown.
4.
Councillor Chandler.
4.
Councillor Faulkner.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Glancy. 4. Councillor Hewson. You're on mute. You're mute.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Higgins.
4, and congratulations, well done to all parties working together on this one.
Thank you. Councillor Holmes. Councillor Holmes, you're on mute. She's frozen. We'll come back to Councillor Holmes. Councillor Posnett.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Steadman.
4.
Thank you. And Councillor Wood.
4.
Councillor Holmes. I think Councillor Holmes is frozen.
Yes, Councillor Glancy, I think.
Oh, no,
there we go.
Councillor Holmes, you're muted.
No.
There we go.
Yeah.
Right, are you in favour, against, or abstain?
I don't know, Owen, really. I'm just a bit concerned about the whole thing, really. But yes, I am in favour.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Right, that is permitted. And look forward to, well, seeing the end result and for it to come back to reserved matters and for working with the developer and the parish council going forward. So thank you very much, everybody.
Councillor Glancy, Councillor Steadman has her hand raised before you close the meeting.
No, I was just going to do urgent business, but yes,
Yes.
Councillor Steadman.
Sorry, could I just make a point of clarification on the Tofts Hill application? The applicant actually said after Dr. Cooper's objection came in, Dr. Cooper didn't actually object to this application. And the reason why it was late was because in February we had severe floods in my ward and I visited every village that day. And when I went up Tofts Hill, I became concerned what would happen with retaining walls. I asked Dr. Cooper for an opinion, which he gave, and I then passed that on to Jim. So it wasn't actually him objecting. He was being objective, but not objecting. Could I have that put in the minutes there somewhere? Because I don't think he'd be too pleased if he read that reference to himself. Thank you.
Can that be included somewhere? Thank you very much. Thank you.
That's fine.
Right. Urgent business, item 5. I have no urgent business this evening. So I would like to close the meeting at, what is the time? 28 minutes past 8.
You guess us every time with that, Councillor Glancy.
It's Prosecco time.
8:20. Yes, it is Prosecco time. You are right. So it is 8:26 on my phone.
That's
The
correct.
meeting is closed.
I
So
confirm
thank you
it's,
very
yeah.
much, everybody.
Thank you. Could I just thank Andrew for 2 very well written reports? And
Yeah.
I think you handled us well today as well. Well done, young man. Thank you.
Well done, Anne.